Good morning, WI Beginning Band. This is our lesson number 1 for percussion in distance learning. You can hear my drum machine that I have set up here. I actually am using some very old samples from the Lynn drum machine, made famous by Prince on many of his singles that he recorded. But I took those Lynn drum sounds, created a pattern, and then added a different drum beat to it to give it a different sound. So I got a drum beat kicking, and that gives me a sense of time or a tempo. I could just use a regular old metronome, which you might find on your piano. So if you have a piano, electric piano at home, and you see the metronome, you can click on that. That can give you a sense of tempo or time, and you can move the beats per minute down. Most are set to a default of 120, which is pretty fast. I mean, we can do our single stroke roll to this. Now, you might not have your snare drum at home, so you could use a drum pad. Parents like the drum pad because it's very quiet. And this may seem very simple, but I am actually working on a number of different things here as I practice my single stroke roll, my first rudiment. Please check the postings for a listing of all the rudiments we're working on and the different videos that go to Vic Firth. You'll find them to be very challenging, but they will give you a sense and a scope of what we're doing with these rudiments. So this whole time I'm still keeping right with the metronome. I'm trying to keep my hands as close to the pad as I can, and I'm also trying to keep my hands flat. So I don't want to roll them over. I don't want them to be here. I want them just to be comfortable. So if I were to go to play a piano or hold a tennis ball in both hands, my grip again is 60% the 2 fingers, maybe 20% the next finger, and very little with the 3rd and 4th finger. They're really just helping me rebound the stick. So again, my metronome is going. That metronome can get kind of boring for me, and in fact it just reminds me of my teachers putting on the metronome for the entire lesson, and it would drive me crazy. So maybe you want to put on a beat. You could practice with that. The BPM on this is a little bit slower, so it's easier. Maybe I'll double it up. Maybe I will double it again. And maybe I'll turn that off and just try and go as fast as I can. Doesn't seem very even. I think the metronome helps me. I put my phone out here too because you can get a number of different apps on your phone or your iPad. I use one that's called Metronome, and it's actually called Pro Metronome, and it is free. So I can set the sound on there. It's a little bit low when I'm playing with my snare drum, but if I'm playing with my pad, it works really well. And again, any sort of beat maker keeps us in time playing with tempo, which is important because all the songs I listen to have a steady beat. So this is set at 64 BPM, which is going to be slow. Again, BPM, beats per minute. 60 beats per minute would be 1 beat per second. I'm going to ramp this up a little bit to about 96. That seems to be the speed that I'm working at today. And then if I practice tomorrow, I'll do 100, and then I'll go up to 104 and 108 and just increase each day. I might even keep a log on my music. So again, we're still working on our first rudiment, just trying to set up your practice space. And that first rudiment is the single stroke roll. A rudiment is a sticking pattern. So in this case, it's just right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Double. I tend to rush. I like this metronome because it has a light on it, so I can kind of follow it visually. Now if I want to go even faster, I could double that. Wait, that was double, so. Now if I don't feel like doing math and doubling stuff, I can just increase the BPM. So maybe I'll go up to 100 now and try again. Rudiments are something you should be practicing regularly. I definitely think having some sort of a metronome is important. So if you want to get a metronome and not download an app, you can just go onto any of your tablets or your computers and enter Metronome Online, METRONOMEONLINE.com, and you'll see the metronome. You can change the BPM, beats per minute, by rotating the wheel, and when you press on it, it just gives you a very simple metronome. So again, having that steady beat is important. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm practice on my pad. What if I don't have a pad? Well, I could use my knee. Our next rudiment is going to be our double stroke roll, and that's going to increase let's go on to our other rudiments. Our second rudiment is called the double stroke roll. And just as it's named, it's going to change our sticking pattern to right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. Let's get a metronome going. I'm going to just increase the BPM. That seems easy for me. So in here I have my tempo, and I'm just going to bring it up 4 BPM to 100 now, and try it then. I'm going to go up even another 4. Let's try that. I don't really want to practice with you. I want to show you how to practice. So the idea is, if I'm not being challenged, I should increase the BPM to the point where I'm challenged. And then at that point, I can stop. Maybe I'll make a notation and start there at my next practice session. So I'm up to 104 beats per minute. Double stroke roll, right, right, left, left. I might go faster and push the limit. Sometimes I like to just practice it without any metronome and see how fast I can really go. If you noticed, as I got faster, my double stroke roll was being played with just one stroke of the hand, and the rebound gave me the double stroke. That was terrible. a certain point, I went from actually playing 2 rights and 2 lefts, right, right, left, left, and I know right where the tempo is where I can get the 2. So there's a breaking point where it switches from me actually playing 2 to 1 hit giving me 2 sounds. Let's try our third rudiment, which is going to be the flam. If you go through the video on vicfirsteducation.com, he really goes through it very nicely and explains how it works. And you can see he looks like a machine. It's incredible to watch him play these rudiments. So I really strongly suggest you go there for the explanation. But the key is that we're going to lift one up, and then we're going to throw both hands down at the drum, getting the sound flam. Then we lift the other hand up and let's add a metronome. Now I forgot to turn down the BPM, so I'm already up pretty high. I'm going to go faster because I can. So now I'm up to 108. Please continue to practice the flam. So let's go on to the next rudiment, which for us is very simple. It's the Flam Tap. And if you watch me, I'm going to do a flam, and then the last stick that came down, I'm just going to tap. Now while I'm tapping, I'll bring the other one up for the next Flam Tap and go tap, flam, tap, flam, tap. Again, it sounds just like its name. Flam, tap, flam, tap, flam, tap, flam, tap. Again, I say go to the Vic Firth education. You're going to find the explanation and the way that he takes you through the video to be very helpful. Let's add a little tempo. A little too fast for me. I'm going to go back down to my original tempo, which is 96. Let's go on. We've done the single stroke roll, we've done the double stroke roll, we did the flam, we did the flam tap, and I'd like to finish off with the 5-stroke roll. So the double stroke roll is used in a 5-stroke roll and a 7-stroke and a 9-stroke, and the idea is that you're doing a series of double stroke rolls and then you end with a single stroke. And we're going to do it very simply. Let's get a metronome. Right, right, left, left, right. Left, left, right, right, left. Right, right, left, left, right. Left, left, right, right, left. You notice on the last ones, I'm now using a rebound stroke or a bounce. My right is much bouncier than my left. So when I was your age, I actually had to practice my left to get it to be the same. And there is our 5-stroke roll. You'll notice that I am doing it first with the right and then with the left. So right, right, left, left, right, then opposite, left, left, right, right, left. Double speed. Bounce. So there you have it, the 5-stroke roll. Might as well do one more rudiment, and that's going to be our paradiddle. So the paradiddle is a sticking pattern, as all our rudiments are, and it's just going to start right, left, right, right. And then you reverse it, left, right, left, left. Let's get a little right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Double it up, and here we go. Right, left, right, right, left. Notice I'm bringing the stick up a little bit higher to give an accent. The paradiddle, when played together with the right and left, you want to make sure that you distinguish them by giving a little bit of an accent. Double time, here I try. So I can hear in my rudiments that when I play along with the groove, there's a little discrepancy in how my hands are playing. And the idea is that the more I practice, the more I can iron that out so that I don't hear a difference in my right or my left hand, or from one paradiddle to the next paradiddle, that they're all even. The key to doing that is not to play it too fast. I also find that playing with a metronome or a groove will give you a sense of timing that when you play it by yourself isn't really there. And in fact, if I record myself without a metronome, my timing kind of gets faster and slower, and it's not very natural. So the key for me is to practice a lot with a metronome or another beat, and then I will be better prepared to playing with other instruments in an ensemble. Well, we've gone through quite a bit of rudiment work. Let's move on to some exercises. So the first exercise I'd like to tackle is on page 12 in your book. It is called Eighth Note Express, and it will work on reading quarter notes and eighth notes and their corresponding rests. The key to playing Eighth Note Express is identifying where the quarter notes are and where the pair of eighth notes are. And that's very important to realize, that we're not working with single eighth notes. Each of these eighth notes are in a pair. So there are two together, which makes it very simple to read, because two eighth notes will fit in the same space as a quarter note. The quarter note gets one beat, a single eighth note gets half a beat. When you put them in pairs, they add up to one, which makes it nice and even. And we really are just looking at two different figures on the page. If we see the quarter note, we're going to just play the number 1. If we see the pair of eighth notes, we're going to add the word and. So here in measure 1, we have 1, then a pair of eighth notes, 2 and, then on beat 3, a quarter note, 3, and then another pair of eighth notes, 4 and. So I can look at it and just say 1, 2, and 3, 4 and then play it. 1, 2, and 3, 4 and. In my second measure, I can see that the eighth notes are on beat 2, and on beat 4, I have a rest. So I'm just going to add the word and on beat 2. 1, 2, and 3, rest. On beat, excuse me, not beat, but on measure 3, I see again the eighth notes or pair of eighth notes are on beat 2, and the other 3 are quarter notes. Pretty easy. I just go 1, 2, and 3, 4. The last measure is exactly like the second measure. So since I've practiced that, I can just play it again. Again, it's 1, 2, and 3, rest. 1, 2, and 3, rest. Let's try the entire exercise, number 32, page 12, eighth note express. Again, since I don't have an instrument in my mouth, I'm not a flute, a trumpet, or actually I'm a human being, but I'm not playing a wind instrument, I should count always. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, eighth note express, and ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Again, exercise 32. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, rest. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, rest. More fun with a beat. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, rest. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, rest. Again, eighth note express. 1, 2, ready, try. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, rest. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, rest. Not bad. Let's go on to Surprise Symphony. And I'd like you to take a look at the snare drum part on exercise 35. You're going to notice that the bass drum part is also in there on the bottom space, but the snare drum line, which is not on the first, not in the second, but in the third space, is what we're playing. So we're going to skip the first line where there's the triangle part, and we're going to go to where it says SD, snare drum, variation. And again, we're just going to count it and then play it. So let's do the whole line counting it. And just to remind you, if there is a pair of eighth notes, we're going to add the word and. So here we have 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, and. Again, we're on exercise 35. The second line, we're reading the snare drum part on the third space. We count from the bottom, just like a house. First, second, third space. It says SD, and right above it, it says variation. Here we go. 1, 2, try your best. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, and. Let's try that again. Number 35, line 2, snare drum. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, and. So you don't have to rewind. Let's try it one more time. Let's add a little metronome here. I'm going to go with the phone metronome. Here we go. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, and. Not bad. Let's try that again. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, and. So that was at 92 BPM. Maybe I'll just mark that so that next time I can try it a little bit faster. Let's look at the last line. Again, we're on exercise 35, line 3, snare drum part only. That's in the third space. Let's count it. Here's our metronome. 2, ready, count. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and rest. 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2 and 3, rest. I'm going to slow that down a little bit. Let's put it at 80. 1, 2 and 3. So this is line 3 of 35. Here we go. 1, 2, here we play. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4. So that time I said the numbers for the rest, but be aware that on measure 2 of the last line, we rest on beat 1. Let's try it again. 1, 2, try your best. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and rest. 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2 and 3, rest. Last line, and here we go. Surprise Symphony. 1, 1, 2, here we go. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2 and 3, rest. Let's try all of Surprise Symphony. And when I say all, just the snare drum part. So we're starting on line 2, where it says variation, and then we're going to do the last line. Now, we're not going to wait in between the second and third line, so when you get to the end of the second line, you want to look ahead and make sure you're ready. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, Surprise Symphony, line 2 and 3, ready, go. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and rest. 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2 and 3, rest. Let's try it with the beat. 1, 2, Surprise Symphony, here we go. Line 2 and 3. 1, 2, ready, play. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and rest. 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2 and 3, rest. Feel free to rewind and try it as many times as you would like. All right, let's take a look at MaryAnn. This is on page 10. It is exercise number 29, and the song MaryAnn is one of the songs that we will play in the beginning band concert, whether that is on the WI stage or whether we record it in virtual world. We are going to play MaryAnn. So we're going to count it and be aware of where our eighth notes are and make sure we add the word and. We also can look ahead and see at the end we have a paradiddle. So we want to make sure we get the correct sticking pattern for paradiddle. Looking at the last two measures of MaryAnn is where we're going to start. The ending is important because that's what most people will remember. So if you have a strong finish, it can kind of erase the memories of your listener if we made any mistakes before. So at the last two measures, if I just looked at it rhythmically, it would be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. But because of the indication of a paradiddle, it wants me to change those eighth notes to be right, left, right, right. And that's our paradiddle. So now the last two measures would be 1, 2, paradiddle. 1, 2, paradiddle. The sticking pattern is right, left, right, left, right, right, left. Last two measures, right, left, right, left, right, right, left. Again, here it is, 1, 2, paradiddle. So let's go back to the beginning of MaryAnn, and we're going to practice it in 4 measure phrases. And if you look at the first 4 measures, we notice that there are patterns in music, patterns in music, patterns in music. The first, the second, and the 4th measure are all the same. 1, 2, and 3, 4. In the 3rd measure, it changes and goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So just playing the first 4 measures will give us a nice sense of these patterns, because the next 4 measures are exactly the same. The next 4 measures are almost exactly the same. And then we finish with our paradiddle. So let's just go back to the first 4 measures. Exercise 29, MaryAnn. 1, 2, 3, 4, MaryAnn. Try your best. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. Let's add a metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. The next 4 measures are the same. Let's keep going. Here we play. Measure 5, 6, 7, and 8. 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. Let's try the top line of MaryAnn, all 8 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. Very nice. Please rewind. Practice it till you can get it nice and smooth. We're going to go to the second line, and again we're reading the snare drum. We will notice that we have the same actually we'll notice that the pattern changes. So here we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4. So again, I'm counting the second line of MaryAnn, the snare drum part, and I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4. Let's try that with the metronome. Second line, MaryAnn, the first 4 measures. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4. Not bad. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, go. Now we've got to our last 4 measures. Yes, we have it. I can't rap, so I'm just going to say it. 1, 2, and 3, rest. 1, 2, and 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try that. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, rest. 1, 2, and 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. We need to remember that that last figure is a paradiddle. Right, left, right, right, left. So let's try the last 4 measures again with the metronome. Here we go. Last 4 measures of MaryAnn. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, paradiddle, stop. Let's try all of MaryAnn. I'm going to record it once with the metronome, and then you can rewind it as many times as you would like. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, MaryAnn. snare drum, go. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, rest. 1, 2, and 3, rest. 1, 2, paradiddle, stop. 2, 3, go. Let's do it again. I'm not going to count so that you will have to rely on your own counting. Here we go. Let's try it last time, although you can rewind as many times as you would like. We are on page number 10. MaryAnn, number 29, snare drum part. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, ready, go. Next line. MaryAnn. Have fun.